Okay, so get this. Have you ever felt like you need to, get everything perfectly in order to get anything done?
Uh-huh.
What if I told you that maybe a little chaos might actually be, the key ingredient? Like the secret sauce to your next big win?
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating concept. We're so used to thinking that, order equals productivity,
Right.
but this article we're looking at today from Syntropy,
Ah.
higher chaos, it just throws that idea out the window.
It really does. It makes a case for how a little controlled chaos can actually lead to some really, really cool innovations.
Mhm.
And they've got examples from all over the place. We're talking science, nature, even memes. We're going to dive deep into this article today, published just last month.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah, so they kick it off with this Nobel Prize winning work by Ilya Prigogine back
That,
in 1977. This guy basically flipped our understanding of entropy on its head.
okay, so break that down for me. Entropy. I vaguely remember that from high school science. It's something about disorder, right?
Exactly. Like the classic idea is that everything in the universe is kind of moving towards disorder.
Hmm.
But what Prigogine found was that in systems that are open, they're interacting with their surroundings,
Okay.
chaos can actually be the starting point for like brand new structures and complexities.
So it's not just things falling apart. It's like new things kind of emerging from that mess.
Right. And it's not just some theory. You see this playing out all the time in nature.
Oh, yeah.
Like, think about an ant colony. If you just glance at it quickly, it just looks like a bunch of ants just like running around doing their own thing.
Total chaos.
Right.
Hmm.
But then when you zoom out, you see this incredible order that emerges from all of that. You got these intricate tunnels and these efficient systems for gathering food. You got this whole like organized society, and it's all coming from what looks like, random actions.
So it's like those huge flocks of birds.
Yeah.
Each bird is just reacting to the bird next to it.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow they create these amazing patterns in the sky.
Totally. Or have you ever seen like a time-lapse video of clouds forming? You see all those swirling patterns?
Yeah.
That's kind of a similar concept, but it's happening at like a much smaller level.
Yeah.
The article talks about these things called Bénard cells. Imagine you're heating like a thin layer of oil in a pan.
Okay, so I'm picturing a lot of splattering. Not exactly what I would call order.
Yeah, true. But within all that seemingly random movement, something pretty amazing happens.
What's that?
These perfectly symmetrical hexagonal patterns just suddenly form across the surface of the oil. It's a really cool example of how nature can actually use chaos to create order.
Okay, so that's in nature. But does this chaos to order thing happen in human systems too?
All the time. Like, just think about how lines form. You have a crowd of people waiting for something. Nobody's really in charge.
Yeah.
But order emerges from that, like, chaotic jumble of individuals.
What about the stock market? You got millions of people buying and selling every second.
Yeah.
And somehow it finds a sort of equilibrium.
Exactly. And think about the internet. No one sat down with like a master plan to create this global network that connects billions of people.
Right.
It just kind of grew organically, right? From tons of individuals connecting and sharing information.
So you're saying the internet, with all its, cat videos and conspiracy theories, emerged from chaos.
Pretty much, yeah. And if you really want to talk about chaos in action, there's no better example than memes.
All right, now you're talking my language. Like a random typo
Yeah.
or a funny picture, it can turn into this global phenomenon.
Yeah.
How does that even happen?
That's a perfect example of emergence. Memes evolve and spread through pure chaotic creativity. There's no, meme CEO calling the shots.
Right.
It's a bottom-up process, totally driven by like randomness and collective participation.
Okay, so we got ants, clouds, the stock market, memes, all showing this principle of chaos to order. I'm starting to see the potential here.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back down to earth. How does chaos lead to innovation in a business setting?
That's where things get really interesting. Most companies are super obsessed with order and predictability, but some of the biggest breakthroughs have come from those who were willing to embrace a little bit of chaos.
So instead of planning every single step,
Yeah.
they're saying, let's shake things up and see what happens. Give me some examples.
Okay, so take Slack. The platform like everybody uses to communicate at work these days,
Uh-huh.
it actually came from a failed gaming company.
Really?
They were trying to build this huge online game.
Wow.
And the tool they created for internal communication, that ended up being the real success.
That's wild. So sometimes it's about seeing the opportunity in the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
What about other companies?
What about Nintendo? They started out making playing cards way back in the 1800s.
Wow.
And they went through all these random ventures. Like, they even ran a taxi service at one point
Really?
before hitting it big with video games.
This looked like they were experimenting with a
Yeah.
bunch of different chaos budgets
They-
until something worked out. I love that. What about like really iconic examples of chaos-driven innovation?
Well, think about the Post-it note that came from a quote-unquote failed adhesive experiment at 3M.
What?
Yeah. A scientist was trying to make a super strong glue, right? But he accidentally created a weak, repositionable adhesive instead.
And that's how we got the Post-it note.
Exactly.
Wow. It revolutionized the way we leave notes, reminders, and passive-aggressive messages to our coworkers. It seems like all these failures were just happy accidents, just waiting to be found.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what all these companies have in common is they made environments where those happy accidents could happen.
Right.
They weren't afraid to let their employees just try things out, even if it meant things got a little messy in the process.
So it's not just about being okay with chaos.
Yeah.
It's about actually creating space for it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big shift in thinking for most companies. I'm really interested to hear more about how they actually do that.
It is a big shift. It's not about getting rid of all structure and planning. Right.
It's more about, finding that sweet spot.
Okay.
Like, you wouldn't want a surgeon operating on you with a chaos budget, would you?
No, definitely not. I'm all for innovation, but I like my surgeries to be a little more predictable.
Exactly. There are definitely places for precision and order,
Yeah.
but then there are those areas where taking a little calculated risk can lead to amazing results.
So that makes sense. But how can people listening actually apply this to their own lives?
Yeah.
It's easy to talk about these big companies like Google, but what about someone working a 9 to 5 or a student? How do they embrace a little chaos?
That's the cool thing about it. This concept can be scaled to any situation. You can start small.
Okay.
Like, what's one thing you do every day that you could just change up a little?
Ooh, I like that. Like, instead of taking the same route to work every day,
Yeah.
try a different way. You might find a new coffee shop or something.
Exactly. Or if you're working on something creative and you're feeling stuck.
Try changing up your process.
Okay.
If you're a writer, ditch the laptop and use a pen and paper for a while.
Oh, I like that.
Or if you're a musician, try a new instrument.
That's a good one.
Yeah, or even just rearranging your furniture can shift your perspective.
It's all about breaking those routines and adding some randomness.
Exactly.
That reminds me of brainstorming.
Uh-huh.
The best sessions are the ones where people feel free to throw out any idea,
Yeah,
no matter how crazy it sounds.
absolutely. Sometimes those are the seeds of the biggest innovations.
Right.
Remember, the goal isn't chaos just for the sake of chaos.
Yeah.
It's about using randomness to unlock new possibilities.
Okay, so I'm really interested in this chaos budget concept.
Yeah.
So it's basically setting aside time or resources just to experiment.
Yep. And even if those experiments don't work out, they're still really valuable learning experiences.
Oh.
You're pushing your boundaries,
Yeah.
becoming more adaptable.
Which are pretty important skills nowadays when everything's changing so fast.
Yeah, it's exact.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the good stuff, but are there any downsides, any risks to embracing chaos?
That's a really important question. Remember, we're talking about controlled chaos.
Right.
It's not about just doing whatever with no regard for the consequences.
Okay.
It's about protecting your core operations, the important stuff you need to keep going.
Right. So don't quit your job just because chaos is good.
Exactly. Pay your bills.
Yeah.
But maybe try that new hobby you've been thinking about.
That's a good one.
And remember, embracing chaos can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can see that.
It takes a certain tolerance for uncertainty. You got to be okay with not knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
It's like when you're cleaning out a super messy closet. It gets messier before it gets better.
Oh, I know that feeling.
But once you get through the initial chaos of sorting and purging,
Yeah.
you end up with a much more organized and functional space.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And it actually highlights something else important. Just because you embrace chaos doesn't mean there won't be any stress. In fact, you might have even more.
It's not about eliminating challenges. It's about learning to deal with them differently.
Okay, so it's about how we approach those challenges.
Exactly. It's about facing those challenges with resilience and creativity, seeing the opportunity within the obstacle.
I'm so glad we're talking about this.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in wanting everything to be perfect. But maybe chaos is what we need to unlock our full potential.
That brings up a great question for everyone listening. What's one thing in your life where you could loosen up a bit
Ooh, I like that.
and see what happens?
What routine could you disrupt?
Yeah.
What assumption could you challenge?
Remember, you don't have to do anything drastic. Start small, be intentional, and see what happens.
We'd love to hear about your chaos experiments.
Yeah, share them with us on social media using the hashtag #DeepDiveChaos.
We'll be right back after a quick break to wrap up our deep dive into chaos. And we're back. We've been talking about this whole higher chaos idea and how a little bit of chaos, when done right, can actually help you come up with new ideas and grow.
It really makes you rethink that idea that everything needs to be perfectly organized.
It does. We often think we need to control every little thing to be successful.
Right.
But what if a little bit of not knowing what's going to happen is actually what helps us unlock our full potential?
We've seen how it works in nature, like with those intricate ant colonies and those Bénard cells that just pop up.
Right.
There's like a hidden order in all that randomness.
And we talked about those companies like Google and 3M. They've actually built chaos into how they work.
Yeah, they give their employees the freedom to experiment and even fail.
And that's led to some of their biggest wins.
It's all about making a space where those happy accidents can happen.
Yeah.
Where people feel okay trying new things and pushing boundaries.
And we've also talked about how anyone can use this idea in their own life, whether it's shaking up your daily routine or trying a new approach to a project or just being open to whatever comes your way. The main takeaway here is that chaos isn't something to be afraid of.
Right.
It's a force that can be really powerful if you use it the right way.
It's like changing your mindset from seeing chaos as a problem to seeing it as a possibility.
So instead of always trying to make everything perfect and controlled,
Yeah.
which is kind of impossible anyway,
Yeah.
we can be okay with a little mess and uncertainty. You never know what amazing ideas might come out of that chaos, right?
Right. That's the exciting part. The unknown is where the magic happens.
It's where we find out new things about ourselves,
Yeah.
about the world, and about what we're capable of.
Totally.
I don't know about you, but I feel pretty inspired.
Me too.
I'm ready to shake things up and see what happens.
I'm with you.
And we want all of you listening to join us.
Yeah.
What's one area in your life where you could let go a little? What routine could you change up? What belief could you question?
And remember, you don't have to make huge changes. Start small, be deliberate, and see where it takes you.
We've been talking about embracing a little chaos,
Mm-hmm.
and we hope you'll give it a shot.
You might find your next big breakthrough.
Or maybe you'll just learn something new about yourself.
Either way, you win.
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the power of chaos.
Until next time, stay curious and open to the unexpected